Hey, Bran,
Yeah.
what's the difference between a pecan and a pecan?
I don't know what.
You don't keep a pecan under your bed in the middle of the night.
Ew. That's just unsanitary. Folks, welcome back to Brand Coverage. I'm Brandon Carney alongside Pat Gustafson. I'll have you guys know I had an okay joke prepared to start the show, but as soon as I joined the little room here before we went live, Pat goes, "Hey, I got a joke if you don't have one. My dad just whipped it out 10 minutes ago." So I was like, "Your dad did what?" And I obviously meant his dad told him the joke, but that's not what it sounded like, Pat. It sounded awfully suspicious, but I'll
He
let
told
you
me the
rock with
joke
it.
too. I don't know what you're. Oh.
For fuck's sake. All right, folks, welcome back. We've got a fun little show for you today. As promised last week, we are getting into our fantasy football divisional previews. Now, I know what you may be thinking. Guys, it's May 27th. What are you doing? Fair point. However, in order to get through all of these divisions, before teams like report to camp and we have, some more info as that stuff comes in that we would like to cover as it happens. We got to get through these divisions here while we still can. We only do one show a week, so we got to start popping through them. And today it will be the NFC North, so we will get to that in a little bit after we get through our headlines of the day. Starting with, Pat, R.I.P. Jim Irsay. Jim Irsay is an absolute just icon of the sport. Obviously, not the most clean cut guy. Certainly had had some personal issues, but a guy that was very well loved in NFL circles. Although, despite any personal things that he may have had going on. So, R.I.P. Jim Irsay. We lost an interesting one. That's for sure.
I was gonna say, as a man that loves hookers and cocaine, we salute you. We salute you.
Yes. So rest in peace. Prayers up to him and his family and the Colts family. Pat, we do have some rulings on the NFL rules, I guess, and rule changes that they were considering that we touched on last week. Now, we did talk about how they were going to allow NFL players to participate in Olympic flag football. That did officially get passed, as we mentioned last week, and we even made our personal flag football teams out of NFL players. But they were also talking about the tush push, and at the time, it seemed like the momentum was going pretty heavy toward it being banned, and it was not banned. The tush push lives on. I, for one, as we mentioned last week, Pat, we spoke our stances on the subject. I'm glad that it's sticking around. I think it's just a strategic thing. And again, if not every team can do it, and if other teams actively fail at it, I don't see a reason to ban it. It is interesting to me that from the initial vote we had, a couple months ago to now, there were more votes for banning it. So there's clearly a lot of lobbying going on here behind the scenes, but it did not get enough to actually.
Well, there were also some, it was a different pitch too, wasn't it? Like they had amended certain things about it, did they not?
They did. They did.
So
they
that could explain it, but I mean, that could also be trending. We're trending into that direction. But yeah, if the only way it's hurting the sport is that one team does it well and the others do it badly, there's no need to ban that. We've made that very clear. That's how we feel.
Yeah, so we'll see if this gets any more momentum, any more votes. I don't know if they're going to vote on it every fucking year at this point. I don't know if the tush push gets any sort of immunity. But after Jason Kelsey's impassioned defense of the pushing of the tush, it will be sticking around at least for the 2025 season, and we'll also not be getting any sort of playoff reseeding either. That was approached as a possibility of division winners not automatically getting a home game in the first round of the playoffs. It was just going to be the highest overall seeds or the best overall records getting those home games and ordering it by record in the playoffs. That will not be happening, so that has been tabled for at least this year as well. It will not be happening. Pat, Aaron Rodgers. We've got some more Aaron Rodgers news, and I mean, thank goodness, right? We almost went a whole month without hearing from Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers says he will not play for the Saints. I don't know what this little interview clip was from. I don't know where he was. I don't particularly care, but he gave some comments on some things, and this was one of them.
I need you guys to know that I will not be dating Jessica Alba. Just making that very clear right now. I'm not doing it. So quit asking. Nobody. That is the first I have heard of that even being linked. Literally even seeing it written in our show sheet, not even hearing it in a report. That's how little this matters. And I think Aaron Rodgers thinks that this was going to be some crazy big bombshell. And it's just like, I'm here to tell you, we don't care.
Well, I mean, he was asked, and it was a reasonable question just because the Saints quarterback room is
They're the closest
so
link
desolate. It's really, really bad. So, I mean, I think somebody just asked him the question, and he said no, but it was kind of the way he said no. He was like, no, absolutely not. I'm too old. I don't want to live in Louisiana at this point in my life. Sorry. And I was like, honestly fair. But it's just kind of funny to me that he was so dismissive of the idea at this point of seemingly playing for anybody that isn't the Steelers, and yet he also won't fucking sign with the Steelers. So I don't know. I'm just tired of we've said this probably hundreds of times on the show, tired of the will he won't he with Aaron Rodgers, and it's pertained to just multiple things over the
Brett Favre did it better.
Brett Favre did it better. He also sent cock picks, so whatever that means. Hopefully that's
did that
not
better
next for
too.
Rodgers. Oh dear. Kyle Pitts, Pat, you added this one to our show sheet. Not something I've seen, probably because I've blocked Kyle Pitts' name from all my social medias. But Kyle Pitts not at OTAs. Is this an on-site report, Pat? Can you eyewitness this one?
I couldn't personally eyewitness this one, but I did see I believe it was a Pro Football. Yeah, so here we go. First tweet when you search Kyle Pitts. First day of OTAs for the Falcons. No Kirk Cousins or Kyle Pitts in attendance. Obviously, we can link the Kirk Cousins to the fact that he probably does want to end up getting traded, at least to a spot where he might be able to compete for the starting quarterback role, as it seems pretty locked in with Michael Penix here. Kyle Pitts. Oh, here we go. Let's get a. Here's a Pro Football Talk article about it. Let's see. Entering the last year of a rookie contract. Okay, while it's unclear why Pitts is not in attendance, he's set to earn $10.8 million. So it's not confirmed that this is a contract dispute. But
I would sure fucking hope not, Pat. Contract dispute?
It's
for
his
Kyle
final
Pitts?
year of his deal. He should get a very
he's lucky he's on the team. What do you mean final year of his deal?
This was exactly why I put this in the show sheet, because it's like
what?
We're talking about guys like Trey Hendrickson and going back Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. These are guys, they're all Bengals, by the way, which is yikes for them. But these are all guys that really warranted this. If this is true and this is why Kyle Pitts isn't at OTAs, brother.
If Kyle Pitts walked into the Falcons front office and said, guys, I'm not practicing until I get more money or an extension, he should be shot in the fucking head. There is absolutely no world where that is a reasonable thing to be happening. So I'm just going to go ahead and assume he's either sick or there's some kind of personal issue going on, or I don't know. Maybe he's demanding a trade. I could see that one at least. I mean, then he would probably be some team would send in return a half of a club cracker and a fucking Post-it note. But that would make at least some sense. He wants to get a fresh start and he doesn't want to play this season out with Atlanta. But we have no indication to believe that that's what's happening. Yeah, God. The idea of him being like, I need a new contract, guys, or else I'm not playing. Buddy, you're barely playing as it is. What do you mean?
10 minutes into the show, and Brandon has called for Kyle Pitts' execution. Just your average brand coverage.
Hypothetical execution. Hypothetical execution. I'm not saying he should be shot. I'm saying if those circumstances were met, he should be shot. Okay. Those are all the headlines we really have, Pat. We are very much in, I think, maybe the driest offseason we've really had since we started the pod, at least. Because, yes, obviously we have the ever ongoing Aaron Rodgers bullshit. But even that, there hasn't been, I wouldn't say really even any headlines about him in a long time. Like, yes, we have the Saints comment, but it's not, we haven't even heard like, oh, he and the Steelers are close, or it's literally just radio silence, and there's no other ongoing storyline to really talk about right now.
Yeah, there's no Brandon Ayuk from last year. Like, we thought that maybe this Jamar Chase situation would kind of be what, keeps us hanging on through the offseason, but they put the kibosh on that real quick. Same thing with T. Higgins, so like, yeah, and I feel like with Rodgers now, if any news, it's either going to be, hey, he's signing with them, or He still hasn't signed with them.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like they already kind of played that cat and mouse game. He went and visited them, and then this. It's like, we're past that. It's either going to happen or it's not now. So, yeah, there's not that. But again, these storylines sometimes are so contrived that I don't mind this stuff.
Yeah.
Not having something being rammed down our throats 24/7. Hey, yo.
I mean, I love when that happens to me. No, it is interesting. And also, another reason that there hasn't been as much to talk about lately, and especially in this show, so we've kind of got these other segments that we've pulled up. We're going to do some way too early award predictions, too, which will just be funny and fun to look at from, again, the month of May. We were just flat out wrong about the NFL draft triggering any sort of free agent activity. That has just not happened. Like, there are still some free agents who I think certainly are going to end up on teams before training camp starts, or at least before the season starts, but for whatever reason, that process has really been slowed down. J.K. Dobbins is still not on the team. Keenan Allen is still not on the team. Nick Chubb, who, I mean, you and I are both very low on, but we still think will probably be on a roster, I would assume, for the season. None of these guys have been picked up yet, and there are some semi-clear spots for some of them, you would think. I mean, everyone and their mother is putting J.K. Dobbins on either the Bears or the Cowboys at this point because their backfields are just filled with so many question marks, but hasn't happened yet, so it's kind of just a waiting game. But speaking of the Bears, Pat, we are going to be going over the NFC North in terms of fantasy football.
Division.
Now, great division, been loaded with fantasy talent, or at least theoretical fantasy talent. A lot of actual fantasy talent, and then some only theoretical for
and Jameson
years
Williams,
now.
Yeah.
And I was thinking more of just the Bears as a whole until this year. But yes, we're going to go over the NFC North, Pat, and just for my benefit, because it was the first team I researched, and my brain will appreciate if we talk about them first. We are going to start with the currently J.K. Dobbins-less Chicago Bears. I don't know how you approach this, Pat. I kind of went position by position and just, developed my thoughts, my takes on all these guys. And Caleb Williams is one guy who has come up quite a bit, I think, probably just because I like him, but in questions, toward the end of the pod for this upcoming year. And Caleb Williams, I think, is set to be one of the more polarizing and maybe one of the main characters, if you will, for better or for worse, whether it works out or doesn't, of the fantasy football season for 2025 because of the addition of Ben Johnson.
That's the thing is, I think with the Bears, I think the variance is insane. Excuse me. Didn't want to just obnoxiously clear my throat like that, but because we've talked about all the potentially good things they've done to help Caleb Williams, Ben Johnson, bolstering the offensive line, another year of Roma Dunze, drafting Colston Loveland, Luther Burden, like they've done so much stuff. I feel like they're either going to be really great or it's going to be a catastrophic flop.
Yeah.
I don't think we're looking at a situation where, like, almost like the Dolphins last year, it was kind of just like, yeah, it is what it is. No. I think we're looking at a situation where they're either going to be really, really productive or really bad. Not really bad, but just massively disappointing, I'll say. But I guess at least the way I've projected it is on the good side.
Yeah, I would agree. Let's look at the big picture really quick, just so we can get a full breakdown of what has changed for the Bears, because everybody's aware that Ben Johnson is their new head coach. To me, these are the real key things that have changed from a fantasy football perspective. In addition to that, the new offensive coordinator is Declan Doyle. It doesn't really mean a lot for these teams that have very, very offensive-minded head coaches. A lot of the time, you don't even know who the OC is of these teams, and for good reason. It's because they're not doing nothing, but they are not the driver behind the fantasy value or non-fantasy value of the players on the team. You think of teams like the 49ers with Kyle Shanahan. You think of teams like the Rams with Sean McVay. You don't really know or care who the OCs are there, and I think it's going to be very similar here. But just to get the name out there, Declan Doyle is their new offensive coordinator. The offensive line, Pat, this is one that I will admit to being a little ignorant to the fact of the Bears O-line actually wasn't terrible last year. It wasn't good, but it was more, after researching it, very middle of the road. And they were more... they got fucked up by the fact that Caleb Williams held the ball too long, basically, is what happened. But either way, a maybe average or just below average offensive line is very different this year. They made 3 additions as starters. They've now got Joe Tooney, Drew Dahlman, and I believe Jonah Jackson added to that O-line. So 3/5 of the O-line is going to be new players now, and we think improvements at each of those positions. As far as the weapons are concerned, they lost Keenan Allen. They added Colston Loveland and Luther Burden. And those are the kind of main sort of transactional changes that the Bears had this offseason. And it's quite a bit. And that's why this requires so much projection. And nobody really knows exactly what this is going to look like in 2025.
And the funny thing is, I'd argue the biggest move they made was the move they didn't make. In the sense that they are seemingly rolling with DeAndre, Phil Swift, who have still got my flex seal here, and I never put it away from last week, and Roschon Johnson. The fact that they did not go after anyone in free agency or a very good running back class in the draft, the fact that they are rolling with their guys, I'd argue is the biggest storyline amidst all the moves they've made.
I think I can agree with that. But again, let's go position by position now that we got the big picture out of the way. Starting with Caleb Williams. Pat, our ADP numbers, I have some written down. We have some on the show sheet. They're going to vary a little bit because I have different sources. But at the end of the day, we're so early in the offseason, it doesn't fucking matter, and they're all close enough. What I have is from Fantasy Pros. Caleb Williams, ADP currently QB 13. To me, the upside case for Caleb Williams is really easy to make. Number 1 overall pick, caliber prospect. Had some of the worst coaching you can imagine last year. And not only the worst coaching you can imagine, like predictably bad coaching. It's not just in hindsight, he had bad coaches. We kind of knew coming into last year that Matt Eberflus probably shouldn't have had another year as the head coach. And Shane Waldron, I think we were still clinging on to the idea that he could be something. But now, I guess this part is in hindsight, seeing what JSN had to say about him last offseason after Waldron dipped from Seattle, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, like, I know it's only one player, and I know it's only one perspective, but for the guy to be, like, asked about Shane Waldron and then be like, I don't know about that. He was like, he's like, is this live, is what he asked, which was really funny. So clearly didn't fucking like the guy. But there were very obvious signs there that the coaching was bad. So we had really obviously bad coaching, and now Caleb Williams gets one of the most heralded offensive minds in the sport, better offensive line, new weapons. He also has no stud running back as far as we are aware. So at the very least, nobody that they're going to be running the offense through instead of Caleb Williams, kind of taking the reins there. And Caleb himself should be, this is even aside from whoever the running back is, should be due for some rushing touchdown regression. This is a guy that ran for a good chunk of touchdowns in his time in college and did not have a single one last year. So that's something that you would expect him to at least be able to chip in here and there next season. I think the downside case for him, if you're trying to be negative and, look at all aspects of this, Ben Johnson could fail as a first-time head coach. We don't exactly know what he's going to be. I actually tweeted today because I was trying to just find some comparisons. I was like, who are some of the offensive kind of masterminds that failed as head coaches? And, there have been a few. I think I fall on the side of Ben Johnson being okay because a lot of the ones that failed were, in hindsight, merchants of a certain player. And Ben Johnson, or coach, and I mean, that could happen. Ben Johnson could be, maybe Dan Campbell is the smartest guy ever. And I think Dan Campbell's a great coach, but maybe Dan Campbell is the offensive motor here, and Ben Johnson was, kind of just an extra piece of it. I think it probably falls somewhere in the middle of those two arguments. But, a lot of the guys that failed, we thought Eric Bieniemy was even at least going to get a shot at being head coach one day. Well, it turns out he was probably just a Mahomes merchant. Arthur Smith, Derrick Henry merchant, Josh McDaniels, Tom Brady merchant, even though he somehow got a good year out of Mac Jones. I don't know how that fucking happened. But look, Ben Johnson could fail as a first-time head coach. And the other thing is, Caleb could just continue the habits that got him in trouble in the first place. He holds onto the ball too long. The nice thing was he didn't turn the ball over much. He only had 6 interceptions last year, which is why I feel pretty good about him. But so no one's denying the athletic ability here. But if he keeps fucking up in that way and making generally bad decisions, it could be trouble. Where I've landed on Caleb Williams, Pat, and I think you know this, I'm a believer. I think when you take a step back and you just look at what we do know, again, going from bad coaching to at least theoretically decent coaching, it's not going to be a step back from what he just had. And for him to have kind of mitigated the damage last year statistically, when you look at his numbers, I think is impressive. I do think there will be some rushing positive regression there. And I look at the best way I could compare it was, and this is, hopefully Caleb reaches better heights than this guy has this point to his career. But looking at Trevor Lawrence when he had Urban Meyer as his head coach in year 1 and he was QB 22 in fantasy, as soon as he got rid of that guy and they brought in Doug Peterson, who even he didn't end up being that great. Obviously, he just got fired. QB 8 the following year for Trevor Lawrence. So the jump is super easy to make. I think at ADP of QB 13, I think the odds that Caleb is a top 10 quarterback, provided health, I would almost guarantee it. I think the chances that he's a top 5 are pretty solid. So I think, that would be certainly the loftiest case, but I certainly think there is a case for it. So I am a Caleb Williams believer this season.
Yeah, I am too. I would almost certainly say it's more lucky that he exceeds his ADP rather than falls short of that. And honestly, in terms of the way things, obviously it's May. A lot of different things can shake out here by the time drafts happen in August.
No, everything will be exactly the same 4 months from now.
To me, there are a lot of quarterbacks this year. Like, in theory, there could be like 17 quarterbacks that you can at least make a viable argument would be in the top 12 range. So it's like, if you draft Caleb Williams, there are plenty of guys out there. Guys, you mentioned Trevor Lawrence. Guys like Dak Prescott, CJ Stroud could rebound. We'll talk about Jordan Love. There are a lot of other guys who might be a little more reliable in the sense that we've seen them do it before. So if it were to kind of fizzle out with Caleb for some reason, you'll have a backup option. Like, I think after last year where QB was painful down the stretch, I think a lot of these guys are in better situations now, and we're seeing a deep field here where you can give yourself insurance at decent value. But yeah, with everything said, I have no reason to believe Ben Johnson. Like, going back to the Dan Campbell point, I think like Dan Campbell was like, this is what I want to do. I want a tough run and pound offense, and he just goes, implement that. And Ben Johnson says, okay. That's all I think it was Campbell was just like, basically, this is the style of football I wanted to play. Mm-hmm. And Ben Johnson did the rest. So there's no real reason to think. And he's got the weapons, he's got the talent. Again, it's just more of the decision-making things that will kind of keep him from becoming a great quarterback potentially. So yeah, I've got him. I did a rough ranking. I've got him at QB9. So yeah, I think that you need to give yourself some insurance, but I guess all aboard here.
Yeah, I'm so in, but just to be clear, if you're drafting Caleb Williams, draft another quarterback with him, because then,
exactly,
again, this is a guy that, as much as things have changed, and I mean, gosh, they might as well be night and day from last year with Caleb Williams. If you draft him as your only quarterback and then he does exactly what he did last year, you're probably fucked. I mean, you can probably find a halfway decent quarterback on the wire, at least if you react quickly enough and realize that Caleb stinks again. But like, anytime you are projecting a big step forward for a guy, I would draft another quarterback, whether it's a quote-unquote safe guy, or it's another one who you're also projecting a jump for, a guy like Drake May, who I've talked about pairing Caleb with before. And because then the odds that one of them does it, you're just doubling down at that on those odds, and I think they're pretty good. That two guys who were top 3 picks in the NFL draft a year ago, one of them is going to take a step forward in a completely new environment with what we believe to be competent coaching. They're going to be able to be a reliable fantasy asset for you, and they can both move with their legs. I just think the odds are really good that at least one of those guys pans out. So draft Caleb Williams with another quarterback if you're going to draft him, whether it's Drake May or someone safer. Moving on to the backfield here, Pat. DeAndre Swift, Roschon Johnson, and 7th-round rookie Kyle Monangai out of Rutgers. I'll let you take the reins on this one, Pat, because I yapped about Caleb for about 5 minutes. How do you feel about the Bears' backfield?
I don't.
I have no feelings.
And it's funny because I think that's pretty much how I summed up DeAndre Swift last year. And granted, well, he was terrible to start the year and then was just really good for that short stretch. Again, we've talked about the very brief connection between them and Detroit. But again, after 1 year in Detroit, they didn't use him very much that year and then shipped him off to Philadelphia immediately. So that's more so why it's a surprise that they've hung on to DeAndre Swift this long. But with all the options available here, for Ben Johnson to say, at least at the moment, this is our guy, must mean he has to believe in him somehow. Or, as I mentioned either last week or the week before when we did a breakout draft, this could also potentially set up for a Roschon Johnson breakout. He was he got hurt at the end of his run at Texas, I believe, which kind of dulled his shine as a prospect. But there was a lot of people liking him coming out of Texas there, and who's to say that he's not the guy that Ben Johnson believes in? But at the end of the day, I think with all the passing weapons, with Caleb there, with Ben Johnson now, I think that it's more likely for this to be a high volume passing offense where the rushing attack may take a back seat. And I think the fact that we've seen Swift prove to be not great in terms of talent wise, I'm not very excited to draft, take a late stab on Roschon Johnson. Because again, guys, these late picks, rounds 12 and later, pretty much, you may cut these guys by week 2. So
more likely than not,
that's what I mean. Like, those guys are revolving doors. So I like taking a shot at Roschon Johnson, but DeAndre Swift, unless I get myself in a hilarious 0 RB situation, which I'm sure I will, that is the only way I would really be considering DeAndre Swift here.
I think, the Caleb glazing session is just going to continue, because I think with all the evidence we have at our disposal,
CW Glazer.
I think with all the evidence we have at our disposal, everything is pointing toward Ben Johnson being excited about being able to have a quarterback-centric offense. And not to shit on Jared Goff, but like Jared Goff, as we've talked about, Pat, is a much more physically limited quarterback than Caleb Williams is. Now, between the ears, Jared Goff has been fantastic. Decision-making, other than a handful of times, has been wonderful. That's why he's been able to captain that Lions offense and be able to, be that core piece of a potential, Super Bowl caliber Lions team. But I think, Ben Johnson took this job for a lot of reasons, one of them being Caleb Williams and how excited he is to be able to, I think, create probably a much different looking offense than what we were used to in Detroit. I think in Detroit, they were so well known for that insane rushing attack with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery and that great offensive line, because that's what played to their strengths. That they identified that was the strength of their team. I think Ben coming here, actively accepting this job with a quarterback that he believes can be, an elite guy, has kind of maybe made that backfield fall by the wayside a little bit, just because that's not going to be the core piece of what they do. Now, with that said, if you believe the Bears are going to be a fairly good team and a good offense this year, there's going to be rushing value within that. Who is that going to be? I've tried to sit here and convince myself on DeAndre Swift, Pat. It's not going to happen. I have never bought into DeAndre Swift. It's not going to start now. And you mentioned how they crossed over a little bit, Ben Johnson and DeAndre Swift in 2022. Well, let me put it in this sort of perspective for you. Ben Johnson was the Lions OC with DeAndre Swift in Detroit 2022. He opted to give Jamal Williams 262 carries on the way to a 17 touchdown season. And I am supposed to believe...
Is he available?
And I'm supposed to believe he's going to make DeAndre Swift his RB1 or his workhorse running back.
I agree.
No, I know. And I'm not saying this is not a Roschon Johnson tweet either, because Roschon Johnson is ultimately a 4th-round pick who, yes, he was in a bad offense last year, averaged 2.7 yards per carry. I think at this point, neither of these guys are players I want to own in really any capacity. And if I'm going to make an investment in the Bears backfield, if it somehow looks exactly like this come, fantasy draft season and training camp and all that, I'll take a stab at Kyle Monangai. I will, as long as the camp reports go the right way for him, because he is a 7th-round rookie. There is a chance he doesn't touch the fucking ball this year at all, as we sit here right now.
Kimani Vidal rehash.
No, literally. But that's such a great comparison.
It could be. But, that's the thing. Very well could be.
I know. But I think, considering all the possibilities right now, I would rather spend, a 15th rounder on Kyle Monangai and, again, fucking cut him, after week 1 of the season. Granted, I think we'll know a little bit more about if he's actually supposed to be in the rotation at all by then for whether he's worth a draft pick or not. But besides the point, I would either invest in him or... Pat, I'm still not convinced they're not adding a running back to this backfield. I know we talked about it a couple minutes ago. Like, I think, cards on the table, they're signing somebody that's either going to make this backfield gross or somehow become their workhorse back. It's a really weird situation to evaluate.
Deontay Foreman's chance right now is to.
He's been a Bear before.
Yes, he was, and he emerged for a few
say.
weeks due to injury. But that's the thing is, we could also see an injury in this backfield. We can see the early camp reports that this isn't working out well. I think they're kind of waiting for that more so than I think this will probably be the group they go into camp with, but I don't know how long that necessarily lasts.
Let me see if there's any other free agent running backs other than
someone just dropped Dalvin Cook in the chat, and you are being asked to leave.
Jail. Absolute jail. Because the only free agent running backs I can think of right now are J.K. Dobbins and Nick Chubb. But let me see here. Available position.
I'd rather start DeAndre Swift than Nick Chubb.
You go to the available running backs. Top of the list, Jamal Williams. I'm just saying that would be maybe the funniest outcome of all of them, I think. Jamal Williams going back and somehow another 17 touchdowns. Our
buddy in our league, our loyal listener Mike, will take him in like the 9th round if that happens.
I also, something else I'm noticing. Apparently Nyheim Hines has hyphenated his name. He's Nyheim Miller Hines now. I was unaware of this. Cool. Good
he likes all the beer and ketchup companies or whatever. Like
Miller
just
Hines,
into
Miller
food and
Hines
beverage.
life. Miller Hines life. Okay, let's move on to the wide receivers in Chicago, Pat, because this is another one. You know, if we believe in Caleb Williams, we believe in Ben Johnson. The receivers are going to be the beneficiaries, but this is maybe as difficult of a group to predict as I've ever seen, because it's three. We'll talk about just the receivers for a second. It's three receivers who all have such different backgrounds to get to this point. You've got DJ Moore, wide receiver 22, 41st. Pat, where'd you pull this from? Underdog, or is this Fantasy Pros?
Fantasy Pros, but I'm on ADP. I went to ADP.
Okay, you're good.
Though. You might be on rankings.
They're all, I probably am. They're all about similar anyway. DJ Moore, wide receiver 22, 41st overall player. Rome Odunze, wide receiver 38, 72nd overall player. Luther Burden, wide receiver 52, 114th overall player. And then you've got Colston Loveland, tight end 12, 118. Cole Kmet, tight end 28, 209. For all intents and purposes, Pat, I don't think anybody's drafted.
I wrote him down for us to basically write him off. That was effectively why I put him in.
I mean, he's been fantasy relevant and talked about, every year of his career so far. He's just been rendered immediately irrelevant.
Well, that's the thing, and I think the fact that, not to get too deep into that, I think you'd think that, like, the fact that they went and drafted Colston Loveland is all you really need to know. The fact that they're paying Cole Kmet that much and still opted to use a high pick where you could have addressed another position on the position. Yeah. By Cole Kmet.
All right, so these receivers, Pat. DJ Moore, obviously been around the block, been in the league a long time. Last year, very up and down season, nothing to really write home about. But again, that kind of the story of the entire Bears offense. Rome Odunze, top 10 pick a year ago, a guy that a lot of people were very excited about. Also did nothing. Also likely a result of just the Bears offense being terrible. And then Luther Burden, interesting for a few reasons. One, lowest draft capital of any of these receivers, but the only one drafted by this regime. So it's like, what outweighs what? Could he be the Amon-Ra St. Brown of Ben Johnson's new offense, a player he has been often compared to? I mean, we'll hold off on saying he's going to be as effective as a guy like Amon-Ra, but does have a higher prospect pedigree than Amon-Ra ever did, and was actively selected by this regime. So, Pat, ADPs aside, cost aside, who do you like the most in this receiver room? Is it the easy answer of DJ Moore just because he's the established vet, or is it one of the upside guys? Because I think Odunze and Burden at this point probably have a little more ceiling upside than DJ Moore does.
Well, that's the thing is, like, if only one of those guys existed, say they don't draft Luther Burden and Rome Odunze is really the only other guy, give me Odunze all the way. Like, these two, they may be kind of fighting each other for this role, so they may not be able to fully break out. Did either of us draft Odunze in the breakout draft last week? I don't think we did. I don't believe
so. No.
What was I whiffed. I whiffed on that.
I wouldn't have been. I don't think I would have been considering him much because of just the murkiness that Luther Burden creates here.
The one thing about DJ Moore, in spite of how bad that offense was, at the end of the year, he really started being involved. Again, the numbers aren't eye-popping, but you look at targets here the last starting with that Thanksgiving game where he had 16 godforsaken targets for only 97 yards. That's very Bears of you. But then end of the year, 8-8, 10-8, 10. So at the very least, him and Caleb were finally building that rapport there. So I think if you're looking for a floor play here, it's DJ Moore. But again, that brings value into the equation. So that's the thing is like at DJ Moore's value of what here, around wide receiver, a low end wide receiver 2, is floor a good enough argument for him to be going where he's going in these drafts? I don't know. I mean, maybe there's enough in this offense for 2 guys to really shine, but the congestedness of this wide receiver room worries me about drafting more at his value at the moment.
I would agree. I mean, God, if anybody knows me, this is going to be the least surprising take ever. I'm going to chase the ceiling of Luther Burden. I think the fact...
you're going to go that deep.
I'm going to go that deep. I mean, look, I'm not going to have Luther Burden in my starting lineup week 1 of the NFL season, but if I have to pick between any of these 3 guys, I'm going to take Luther Burden. I think I'm going to put a lot of stock in the fact that this is the guy Ben Johnson chose him with an early 2nd round pick. And I just think that matters. I think the fact that DJ Moore has, let's be honest about DJ Moore, Pat, outside of Justin, I can't look past my first read Fields, DJ Moore has never put up a really, really, really good fantasy football season, and even statistically NFL season. A lot of 1,000-yard seasons, not enough touchdowns for him to be fantasy relevant. You could argue he was on the Panthers that whole time. I get it, and I will listen to that. But I just think the congestedness of this wide receiving core, I would rather the guy that they handpicked and that has gotten some of those comps to an Amon-Ra. I'm gonna, if I got to pick anybody in this room, I'm gonna pick the guy that they actively picked as well. So I'll stick with Burden here, just by a little bit.
Yeah, and I think DJ Moore is kind of the epitome of like a good but not great NFL wide receiver. Well, the guy's really solid, but he wanted to enter those like more elite territory when he was having those repeated 1,000-yard years, but he's been out of that situation, granted, into another bad situation. But yeah, and Odunze, again, if they don't bring in Burden, I think I'd be sky high on Rome Odunze there, where, he was behind Keenan Allen on the depth chart last year. They go and don't bring Keenan Allen back. And it's almost felt like kind of like a red shirt situation for Odunze, where, just sort of slowly incorporate him, and he takes off in year 2. That could very well still happen. He was, the 9th overall pick 2 years ago? Mm-hmm. Like, even it wasn't with this regime, the fact that you have a player with that kind of draft capital, you're going to at least want to try to incorporate him. But it's funny because I think it's descending in terms of floor from most experience. Moore, Odunze, Burden, and then ceiling goes the other way around with Burden, Odunze, Moore, pretty much here. But I think Odunze's got good value at the very least. Looking at these ADPs, some of these guys in this area, like, sorry, GP Glazer, but I might rather have him than GP. Calvin Ridley, Deebo Samuel's in the area. Chris Olave and his scrambled egg brain, like you just so it's like you can make an argument that Odunze should be going over some of those guys. So I think at the very least I like Odunze's value the most out of here, but a mess. But again, we've seen good teams be messes before and it work. Mm-hmm. So it's like if we really believe in this Bears team, we could be sitting here halfway through the year saying, "Wow, this worked."
Yeah, and look, this is a case where I'll admit, like, camp reports could turn me around on DJ Moore. They could, because I want to believe so much in this Bears offense, and I'm not exactly sure who to believe in yet. Again, leaning Burden, but not entirely sure. I think the reason I'm just kind of colder on DJ Moore, A, because I had him for a couple weeks last year, and he was absolute dog shit, but B, even in a terrible offense, I would have liked to have seen more that told me his and Caleb's connection was something. You know what I mean?
It wasn't until you traded him to me that happened.
Right. But even then, it's like DJ Moore had 200-yard games last year, and they were for 105 and 106 yards.
Yeah.
Like, if this was a guy that I thought had this potential to be a dominant receiver with this same quarterback, I think even in a depressed version of the offense, we would have seen a little bit more. Maybe that's an ignorant take. Maybe the context really is the entire reason that he was this bad. But that's just kind of where I've landed right now on it.
But yeah, that's the thing. Even to look at DJ Moore last year, I mentioned my weekly redraft guillotine all the time. He was a guy I loved picking, because he was rarely going to lay that egg of a 0, and especially in the middle of the year when there's still a lot of teams left, that's all you need. But again, I think the fact that that's the first thing that comes to my mind about DJ Moore just goes to show that he's probably not going to wind up returning his value on wide receiver 22.
I would agree. All right, really quickly on Colston Loveland before we move on. Tight end 12, 118, really? That seems high.
Yeah.
Apparently tight end 12 right now. I would imagine he will end up a little lower than that. Tight end 15 on Fantasy Pros rankings right now versus the ADP. I guess if that's the range he's in, I don't know. Well, I mean, he was the first player that they picked, so I guess I should like him by my same logic of like and burden, but it's just kind of iffy for me.
I mentioned to Bran earlier in the day, and we don't need to talk in depth about this now, but the tight ends are awful, in my opinion. The last few years on this show, we've talked about like, hey, tight end might have the potential this year to expand. I'm going to be singing a completely different fucking tune this season, because you look at some of these guys on the Fantasy Pros ranking, I almost want to say there's like only 4 guys that I like definitively say I want.
The top
like
4?
Every other guy after Sam Laporta here, we'll talk about TJ Hawkinson, Kelsey, Jonnu Smith, Andrews. I like Andrews, Engram. Then rookies, Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland, Njoku, Tucker Kraft, Dalton Kincaid, Kyle Pitts, Dallas Goedert. It's just an overwhelming sea of mid. And again, mid might be good enough, but none of these names in this area, in that list that I just read, really jump off the page at me. So it makes sense to me why Loveland is thrown squarely into that mix, because that mix is just a massive pool of tight ends right now, at least in my eyes.
That's fair. I was going to say Loveland, late round sort of target. And I mean, even if he's tight end 15 or 12 or whatever it is, like that is still going to be fairly late round with teams generally only starting 1. In fantasy, that is. I don't know. That still seems a little rich. But again, does he have a path to the all-encompassing top 2 target on the Bears? I can't say no. Like he's got a theoretical path. And again, also handpicked by this regime. So I don't hate him as a target.
Yeah, think about it. Like if Adunze and Burden do kind of fight each other for production, that could pave the way for it to happen. Again, I'm not going to be. Again, he's another guy. If you take him, if you wait on tight end, take 2 of them, please.
Yes,
please. That's probably a weekly disclaimer at this point, unless things start to change, because it is big yucky.
Absolutely. All right, moving on to the Detroit Lions, Pat, the team that lost Ben Johnson. So they've got the same head coach with Dan Campbell. The new offensive coordinator is John Morton, former Broncos pass game coordinator. He was in the Lions organization as an assistant a couple years before that. Offensive line, still one of the best in the league. It did lose Kevin Zeitler as a starter, but replaced him in theory in the draft with Tate Ratledge. Also, just probably doesn't matter that much when you lose a single guard off of a line.
Isn't he old, too? He's 35.
Yeah, but you lose one guard off of a line with, multiple all-pro level players. It's still going to be really good. As far as their weapons go, they drafted Isaac Teslaw. He's the only real addition to that offense. Run game, it's going to be good. Offense, going to be good, even though they lost Ben Johnson. So let's start with Jared Goff. QB 10, 84th overall. Offense is still going to be good. I'm good on Jared Goff.
That's the thing is, I think he would be a perfect guy to pair with Caleb Williams if you wait on quarterbacks a little bit. Because again, we've seen Jared Goff as just being this like really steady floor play. And last year when quarterbacks were so bad, that played. But like I said, there are a lot of guys that we'll be talking about in later weeks that have great rebound potential that could easily just sail past him with a potential higher ceiling. So, again, it's not going to be one of these cases where I'm jumping off the page to draft Jared Goff. But if you're in a position where you're kind of needing a quarterback, you're one of the last guys to take one, I think Jared Goff is a fine bet.
I don't know, man. He feels very original version of Kirk Cousins-y to me, where Kirk really only ever had one season where he was putting up numbers you were truly happy with. He would always pile his way toward a good point total for the end of the year, but it would be kind of a slog to get there. He just feels like the pinnacle of a player I don't want to own in fantasy football. I understand that the safe floor could be there, but I would rather a guy, like I'm looking at who he's ranked around, rather Bo Nix, rather Justin Herbert, rather might rather Brock Purdy. It's close. I think he's going to run a little bit more than Jared Goff will.
Rather have Baker.
I'd rather have Dak Prescott. Prescott's all the way down at QB 16. And then you add in the ability of being able to draft these guys a little bit later than Goff. I'm good on Goff, especially with the uncertainty added in about losing Ben Johnson. I don't think it's not going to tank their offense. Again, it has too much talent, and it's not like Ben was operating in fucking silence in Detroit and they have no idea what he was doing or how to replicate it. Like the basics of their offense are going to be the exact same. Yes, maybe some of the crazy trick plays will be a little bit fewer and further between with him gone, but they're going to be just fine for the most part. Still, though, adding any sort of wrench to a guy I already didn't like in Jared Goff, I'm all set on him. So I'll be investing in these other pieces of the Detroit Lions. And these other pieces being the run game, Pat. Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, Thunder and Lightning, two guys that have kind of defined fantasy for the last couple of years. They both just continue to be really good. Jahmyr Gibbs, RB3. David Montgomery, RB23. Jahmyr Gibbs is a guy that I am very intrigued in from my spot of 6th overall in our fantasy draft. If he falls to me, he may not even make it that far. Yeah, I know. Where are you at with these two? Do you trust them? You feel the same as you have the past few seasons, or kind of what's the vibe here with the changes?
I think Gibbs is. I mean, you look at Montgomery's numbers last. Yes, like he is an RB3. And I completely agree in the sense that I do prefer Saquon and Bijan at the moment, but I think Gibbs is going to have a great year. And not necessarily you'd be like, oh my God, he's going to have a great year. They're losing Ben Johnson. I just think he's going to keep building up his role. Because they extended David Montgomery, didn't they? Didn't they extend him beyond the original? Well, let's check. I don't know if I'm making that up in my head here.
Pat's making up stories, fibber.
Tee-hee. Yes, they did. So he's still around for 2 more years plus an option. I was thinking that because this would have been the last year of his original free agent contract. And I was going to say, should that be the case, definitely Jahmyr Gibbs, you can see that production going up. The only thing is, I think Gibbs is good enough to withstand this, but the fact that your backup running back still had 12 touchdowns last year is not great. Is not great. I think it's reasons like that as to why he's not potentially in the same conversation as Saquon in Bijan, is that he's still relinquishing all these touchdowns. And with that same reason, David Montgomery is viable as a kind of a flex play here, where sure he's not going to get he's not going to be the big, I almost said lion's share, and I didn't want to say that. He's not going to be the big load back. Bringing that back.
Right.
He's not going to be the big load back here, but he's getting very valuable touches on what should still be a very good offense that loves. There's not a team that loves to run the football more than the Detroit Lions. So, again, I haven't really looked fully at running back rankings here, so I don't know how I necessarily feel about 22. But, again, if you zero RB it and you're kind of throwing caution at the wind towards the end there, I think David Montgomery's a fine piece to own.
It's so funny, this tier of running backs, because they're guys you would absolutely think should all be right next to each other. From 17 through 22, I'm going to omit Omarion Hampton, who's at 21, because he doesn't fit it. But this group of guys, Alvin Kamara, Chuba Hubbard, James Conner, David Montgomery, and Aaron Jones. That is
still got it.
That is, other than Chuba Hubbard, Unk City, and also Dead Zone City. I mean, but like good backs that have been good for years now.
It's like,
I know,
it's
they've been good.
you still look at least most of those guys, like you name most of those guys, and obviously we'll talk about them, and I think, yeah, I'd be okay drafting them, having them on my team. So,
Yep,
but
running
it's
it
true,
back
that's the
for
thing.
the 100th year in a row. I hate
But
old
you-
people, but here
But
they
you
are.
look at all of those situations there, like Kamara and James Conner, and we'll talk about Aaron Jones in a minute, but like they all have way more of a workload in theory. But again,
Yeah.
are the goal line touches going to make up for the lack of total touches? And it very well could. It very well could again. I mean, I was like staunchly pro Montgomery 2 years ago when I was basically forced to draft him and was just wishfully thinking.
Right.
But Jahmyr Gibbs is one of the most talented running backs in the league. And even without Ben Johnson, there's no reason to believe that he is not going to be the focal point of this offense once again, which should still be good.
Yeah. David Montgomery, noted Brand's boy from last year, but I did not draft him, so fuck me, I guess. The wide receivers here, Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver 6, Jamison Williams, wide receiver 28, really the only ones worth talking about. They do have Tim Patrick, who will be annoying and probably
Rupture
be
his
in,
Achilles again.
and probably be in flex articles and waiver articles because that man
sure.
loves to score touchdowns and is a very talented player. But yes, also a insane injury history. And then Sam Laporta is in there at tight end 4. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Pat, what's the temperature check on him right now? Because we talked about it for a lot of last year where Jamison Williams emerging as a good player kind of fucked Amon-Ra St. Brown in terms of being this elite fantasy wide receiver 1. Now,
that's
he
the
finished,
thing.
what did he finish as last year? Amon-Ra.
At least his totals. I'm looking at his totals. He had 1,263 yards and 12 touchdowns, which on the surface is solid. That's solid.
Amon-Ra finished as the wide receiver 6. So, I mean, look, PPR, I guess he's still going to be just fine. I think it was, I don't know why it felt like he left so much to be desired. Maybe because he poured on 30, 16, and 16 in 3 of the last 4 weeks of the season. So you made it through most of the year with it was a lot more up and down with, basically a month stretch of lows from week 12 to 14, 9, 9, and 7, which for a guy that's supposed to be that PPR floor guy, you just weren't getting as much as you hoped for a lot of the time.
That's the thing. That was the huge appeal of him last year. Like, we were big Amon-Ra Glazers last offseason, basically saying that, like, this guy is going to have a high floor and he's as reliable as anyone. And then he just wasn't. Again, not like he's bad. The numbers are good. He still had his big weeks, but if you think, like, when you said wide receiver 6, I was shocked. Because
I was
he just
surprised
didn't,
too, seeing it.
at
Yeah, it
least
didn't
from the
feel like it.
optics. Yeah, the vibes, he didn't feel like that. You look at some of the guys going behind him here or in his area, like Malik Neighbors, Puka Nakua, Nico Collins, Brian Thomas, Drake London, Lad McConkey. A lot of those guys are more exciting.
Yeah,
That's what I mean. Like, a lot of those guys, it almost feels like they have higher upside, which is crazy to say about a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown, who has proven year after year that he is a top tier, not with the elite, but he's right there.
Yeah.
But just for whatever reason, with Dan Campbell just loving to run the ball, could we see the pass catchers taking the biggest hit from Ben Johnson leaving here? Like I said, I don't think they're changing their philosophy at all. And again, if they're going to run the ball behind that offensive line, it's going to be successful. Mm-hmm. But I feel like if they were to falter at all, it would be in the passing game and just at wide receiver 6. With a lot of those names I said right after, I wouldn't necessarily be out on him. I would just kind of let someone else take him and take one of those guys after him.
And this is why I think it is really important, just as sort of an aside and more of a big picture thing for fantasy football, to think of players in terms of tiers. Because the way Fantasy Pros has it is that way. Like, yes, it has the players ranking next to their name where they are overall, but ultimately the idea is if a player is in the same tier as another player, it doesn't matter what your preference is between those guys. Like, it's fair and logical and acceptable to have a different preference of a player in that same tier. But, like, that's why, Pat, Amon-Ra St. Brown, they currently have as the wide receiver 5, but he's at the very top of tier 2. And then the guys behind him also in tier 2, Neighbors, Collins, Thomas, AJB, London. And I don't think you're wrong. If you want to put Amon-Ra below all of those guys. I don't think you're wrong for that at all.
Because, like, you look at those guys for a second. Like, Nico Collins proved to be a target monster last year when
And
he
he's playing
was
with
out
two
there.
rookies. Those are the only guys
playing with two
alongside
rookies.
Christian Kirk,
Stephon Diggs is gone. Tank Dell isn't going to play. And he's really going to be the only guy. Well, he is the only guy with an established rapport with C.J. Stroud. Huge ceiling potential there. Huge. And especially if that offense turns around with, I forget who their new OC is. It's not Bobby
Nick
Slowick.
Caley.
Nick Caley, that's right.
Actually has a little bit of buzz in his own right as a possibly getting this offense fully back on track.
That's what I mean. Brian Thomas Jr., incredible rookie year in a terrible offense. You bring in our boy Liam Cohen.
Fuck, you can't catch me off guard like that.
Duval.
All jokes aside, you bring in Liam Cohen. Trevor Lawrence is one of those guys as a quarterback that I like going a little later because of this.
Oh, yeah, Trevor Lawrence, sleeper season again, baby. 8th year in a row.
If Lawrence looks better and that offense looks better, the sky's the limit for Brian Thomas. You've got Drake London with a full year of a guy that's not eating glue on the sideline, and his Achilles isn't pieced together by staples. Like, those guys have massive, massive ceilings. You look at Detroit, and it's like Jared Goff with a new offensive coordinator that runs the ball a fuck ton.
And other good receivers in the...
I'm done with Jameson Williams.
One and then a tight end. Jameson Williams had 1,000 yards last year. Like, that was a huge crux with this. Like,
yeah, because he had the over. It's because he had the over on his yards.
He only bets on college and horses.
I'm not saying that, like, Amon-Ra's going to have a bad year, but just with those guys right there, there's just a lot more appealing and a much more appealing ceiling, with those guys. So, yeah, again, I don't see myself picking him very much in that range.
Yeah, I think Amon-Ra's a guy, Pat, for all the reasons we talked about, that, like, especially for people that are only going very surface level. Like, if you're in a more casual fantasy league and the only surface level knowledge they have is, oh, hey, didn't the Lions lose their offensive coordinator? Amon-Ra's a guy I could see slipping a little bit. And, like, look, if this is a guy that you find available in the early second round, smash.
Oh, by all means.
Absolutely.
By all means.
But this is a guy that I agree with you. Between kind of last year's inconsistencies and now, again, the murkiness, it's not as full steam ahead for Amon-Ra as it once was. And I think similar sentiment for Jameson Williams, who already needed to make the absolute most of his touches.
And again, the Lions, maybe they won't skip a beat. And this offense will stay the same, and we'll be fools. Sure. And we'll be fools. But again, it's just not as exciting, not nearly as an exciting situation.
It doesn't feel as safe. You like situations that feel very safe, where nothing has changed. Specifically with the early round picks in fantasy football, I like to target the most consistent and stable things possible. And even if it is just losing an OC that you don't think is going to make that much of a difference that he's gone, like, it's still something that changed, and that's not something I'm super keen to go off of in the first round. I would rather the safest guy possible.
Sure.
All right, the Minnesota Vikings, Pat. They are going to be an interesting one with J.J. McCarthy at the helm. A quick overview of their offseason. No head coach change, no offensive coordinator change. Their offensive line has changed quite a bit. They poached two guys from the Indianapolis Colts, Will Fries and Ryan Kelly will start for them. They also drafted Donovan Jackson, so they should have three new starters on that O-line, and an O-line that projects to be pretty good, which is good because it has to protect JJ coming off a torn meniscus. This offense is, again, it requires a lot of projection and prediction for a guy that has not played a snap of actual NFL football yet. I can go through just first of all, J.J. McCarthy, ADP of quarterback 22 right now. Upside case, Kevin O'Connell makes everyone good. Our boy Ian Hartitz on Twitter is a great follow. He pointed out that in 2022, Kirk Cousins was QB 12 in fantasy points per game. In 2023, he was QB 6 before he got hurt. Then Josh Dobbs had 3 straight top 9 finishes before he ran out of gas. And then Nick Mullins in his only 3 starts was QB 14, 11, and 5.
That man
and then
was
last
slanging
year
it in those games.
and then last year, Sam Darnold was QB 9. So we have pretty strong evidence that you can plug and play anyone in this Kevin O'Connell offense and they'll be really good. The question is is J.J. McCarthy worse than all those guys? We don't know because he hasn't played football yet, and he could be a bust. We have no idea.
You would hope he's better than Josh Dobbs in Nick Mullins, at the very least.
That feels like the correct bet at this stage.
But the thing is we talked about this ad nauseum last year when this whole saga was going through. They knew that Sam Darnold would work in that system, but they said no thanks. They did the Colin Cowherd, hey, we're good. We got J.J. McCarthy.
That's a bad omen. We're good. It's Ben Simmons.
It's Ben Simmons is here. But the fact that they knew that they had a successful quarterback that would work in that system, and they still said, no, this is our guy, means that they truly believe this is the guy for this Kevin O'Connell system. And there's no reason to believe that this offense is going to get that much worse with a rookie quarterback as opposed to Sam Darnold. And that said, it's like you look at all these names outside of Justin Jefferson. I'm not super excited about him.
Yeah, I
it's
think that's
funny.
Fair.
I think the recency bias, at least with a guy like T.J. Hawkinson, it's a bit more recency bias in the fact that I just looked kind of mid last year. He was coming off a torn ACL, thrown in at the end of the year with a quarterback that he had never played with before. Yeah. I am very he is going, I believe, is tight end 5 right now. Because I looked at it, I'm like, whoa, and then I'm like, no, that is entirely justified, in my opinion.
That's crazy. No, I think that's both justified and crazy that you get no injury discount for TJ Hawkins. I know he's had the full year to recover, but the fact that he didn't really show anything at the end of last year coming on, it's just that everyone is consensus. I know it is. I mean, he's shown it for years, and he's still fairly young, especially for the position. But I just think that that's kind of crazy that it's like, hey, here's the 4 most bankable tight ends in the sport as the top 4. And then, after that is right where TJ Hawkinson is, the guy that did not look like himself last year, and we're just going to assume that he's going to be better. I very much am on the TJ Hawkinson train. I think even comeback player of the year isn't off the table for a guy like him. But that is surprising to me that they've got him all the way up at 5, considering how little he showed at the end of last year.
And Justin Jefferson is Justin Jefferson. Outside of Jamar Chase, at least, there's probably no other wide receiver you'd rather have. Is this ADP 2? It should be.
I think so, yeah. I've always hated calling a receiver quarterback proof for fantasy, but I'm there. I'm there with Justin Jefferson. I'm willing.
Man.
He's after the season he just had with Sam Darnold. I've accepted that he's pretty much quarterback proof because that offense is just gonna even Pat, if everything went to shit, that offense would scheme up easy touches for Justin Jefferson. They would figure it the fuck out. So yeah, Justin Jefferson, there's not a whole lot that needs to be said about him. We can go through the pass catchers and circle back to the running backs here, Pat. Jordan Addison, wide receiver 33. He's one of those guys that's always tough to go after, even though he's really, really good. It's like the Devonta Smith sort of argument, the T. Higgins sort of argument, and the even lower version of those guys. It never feels good to have just the clearest of clear wide receiver 2s on a team starting for your fantasy team. So Jordan Addison just doesn't feel like a super interesting commodity to me.
Well, and that's the thing now. A lot of that production last year came without T.J. Hawkinson as well, where he was the clear number 2 guy in that offense from a positive perspective in this situation. But so to have Hawkinson in the mix now, I think that could clearly water down. Granted, some good things we saw from Addison last year. Again, where you're drafting
of boom
him,
bust. Looking at his game log, I mean,
where you're drafting him, he's going to be on your bench, and I've got no problem with that. But again, he's not somebody that I expect to make that leap into being a regular starter.
And that's the thing is if this is correct, 65th overall, that's a spot where I'd rather target a guy that I could reasonably see after the first 2 weeks being like, oh shit, I got to get him in my lineup. This guy's really taking a step forward. That doesn't feel like a possibility with Jordan Addison, barring injury to, Justin Jefferson or TJ Hawkinson. See the guys he's around. I think, guys ranked, but I'll just go off the guys in his tier. Cause again, we're talking tiers right now. Travis Hunter, rather have Travis Hunter. Even though he's a wide receiver 2 as well, I think there's a chance that he could not be, to be quite honest with you. He could overtake Brian Thomas Jr. I don't think that's impossible. Hard, but not impossible. After him, I think It's pretty much, it's a lot of wide receiver 2s on their own team, so it does make this hard. Calvin Ridley, though, is a wide receiver 1. I could see him being a more reliable start with Cam Ward as his quarterback than Jordan Addison is. Yeah, this tier's kind of gross, Pat. I really hope I have my wide receiver starters before I get to this.
That's why he goes 0 RB. I'm telling you.
I would think I would. I mean, this tier starts at wide receiver 30, so in theory, everyone in a 12-teamer already has their 2 starting receivers and then some after that. But yeah, God. Ugh. I don't know who the upside play is here. I guess Roma Dunze is a couple picks behind him as well. Stephon Diggs is down here. Like, he's going to be the number one target for he's going to be the number one target probably for New England. Ricky Pearsall's down here. All the 49er receivers actually are in this tier. So yeah, it's an interesting one for sure. Love the talent with Jordan Addison. Like, that's not the question at all. He's just one of those guys, like, it's generally not a pleasant experience owning a guy. Put it this way. T. Higgins last year, Pat, I think finally started to be one of those guys that you were kind of happy starting most weeks. That motherfucker has Joe Burrow as his quarterback.
Exactly.
Like, it takes that much to get the wide receiver 2 of a certain team to feel like a guy that you are happy about starting. Even Devonta Smith, his is largely because his team is so run heavy, but like, Devonta Smith is a frustrating-ass player to own. Maybe it's getting greedy, but like, I try to avoid these frustrating players just for guys that can maybe hit another gear instead. Yeah. All right, and then the running backs, Pat. Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason. I kind of like Jordan Mason.
I was about to say, I'm doing my favorite thing, talking out of my ass. You've got to think Jordan Mason's going to be one of your best handcuffs. Yes. Jones only didn't miss any games last year, did he? I don't believe he did.
No, I don't think so. He was just one of those guys who's on the injury report every week.
He was on the injury report every week, and then he's had the past injury history. That and the fact that his numbers down the stretch didn't look terrible, but they didn't look great.
Aaron Jones had a really good year. He did. Aaron Jones also handled the most carries he's ever handled in a year with like 255.
And the thing is, it's just... He almost feels like the James Conner, where it's like, you feel like that fall off is coming. But again, let's say it doesn't. He's in a really good offense. Mm-hmm. Again, they may be a little more pass heavy, but again, you're still going to get good red zone and goal line opportunities when you're in a good offense like this. But, should something happen to Aaron Jones, I think Jordan Mason steps into a spot where he's a much younger running back. They went out and sought him specifically out in a trade to bring him in to be there with, I almost said Jordan Jones. Who the hell is that? Aaron Jones. A guy plays for Central. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Yeah. So, go ahead.
I think Aaron Jones is a guy that he's another one, Pat, that I've always kind of had this negative sentiment toward in fantasy. Just frustrating guy to own. Last year was probably the least frustrating year ever to own Aaron Jones.
Because Matt LaFleur fucked off on him finally.
Yeah, he had a really nice year. I feel as though we're probably heading back towards some frustration. If for no other reason than, regardless what you think about Jordan Mason and how this backfield is going to break down, they brought him in and then immediately said they wanted him to be able to spell Jones for certain series, that's not anything surprising, but that he could help them in a spot where they have left much to be desired as a team, which is on the goal line, being able to run the ball. So I think you've got a guy who was the NFL's leading rusher through the first half of the season, first of all, is being brought in for a specific role that is already fairly fantasy friendly, a lot of F's there, and is going to be a bitch and thorn in Aaron Jones' side. I think that all of that combined really makes me not that interested in Aaron Jones and pretty damn interested in Jordan Mason as a flyer guy who I think is probably going to have a decent amount of touchdowns as long as J.J. McCarthy can competently move this offense at least a little bit. Again, it's all relative. The guys that Aaron Jones is near and is in a tier with are all guys I would rather make bets on. You've got rookies. You've got rookies, Marion Hampton, R.J. Harvey, even non-rookies. I mean, David Montgomery, James Conner, Chuba Hubbard are all in this tier. Like, I'd rather them than Aaron Jones. His situation just feels dicey.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Yeah, dicier at least compared to some of these other guys. Look, once you get into tier 4 of running backs, like 18 through 28, everybody's going to have questions, right? But Aaron Jones just feels like one I don't love. All right, the Green Bay Packers.
Ew, but not in necessarily a bad way. Like,
Yeah, I don't know.
they're gonna be good, but it's like,
So the Packers didn't really change a lot. The only thing they changed is they brought in Matthew Golden, who was the first wide receiver that they have selected in the first round in fucking 85 years.
20 years, literally 20 years.
Yeah, it's 23 years, 2002. Jordan Love, QB 16. Not a guy I'm really targeting much, Pat. I think it's a combination of what reason do you have to believe that he's going to take this super big step forward, at least as a fantasy asset, because he doesn't run the ball that much. And we've talked at length about how there are enough quarterbacks these days that are shimmy, yah on the ball with their legs that you don't have to really invest in guys that are not doing that, especially when they haven't shown themselves to be a Joe Burrow level, passer of the football. I think Jordan Love, again, it's another guy that better in real life right now than he is in fantasy, has also not been given a lot of weapons to work with. But the Matthew Golden pick moves me slightly in terms of Matthew Golden being a sleeper for fantasy. Doesn't move me enough to think that Jordan Love's going to be this guy I'm excited to start week in and week out. I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, I think I agree in the sense that, honestly, that's how you could sum up the Packers as kind of better in real life than in fantasy, at least for the pass catchers. We'll talk about Josh Jacobs, but we know that these guys in this offense kind of have like defined roles as pass catchers. And it's like, there's no reason to necessarily believe that they're all going to make a big step, because we kind of just know what they're going to do, and they're going to be a productive offense. But I don't think that is very prone for a breakout for any of these wide receivers or Jordan Love in that sense. Again, there is some upside. Again, good offense, and going at QB 16, you could probably do worse in that range if you really punt the QB position. But there's a lot of other guys in that range. Let's see, I think I have him even lower than that. I actually made rankings instead of just talking out of my goddamn ass. I have him as QB 18. So there are a lot of other guys in that range that I'd rather have. And that includes Trevor Lawrence and Tua, the two biggest what the fuck players in the league.
Yeah, I mean, QB 18 or even 16, like, you're getting to a point where in some leagues those guys aren't even getting drafted. Like, if everybody's only drafting one quarterback, and the people toward the end who got the lesser ones, they are drafting two, so maybe four people draft two quarterbacks. That's barely getting to Jordan Love, who at QB 16, or if you have him lower. And like, I'm looking at, again, Fantasy Pros rankings, like Drake May's 18th, CJ Stroud's 17th, Michael Penix Jr.'s 24th. All these guys are guys I would rather take my second QB gamble on than a guy like Jordan Love, who, you look at his numbers from last year for fantasy, Pat, started the year, after that Brazil situation with the injury, came back and then went for 28, 15, and 25. Cool. That's really good numbers. Then 16, 5, 10, 20, 14, 18, 14, 17, 11, 14.
That's not really startable.
That's mid to sometimes a little above average. Like, it's just nothing that you're super excited about for fantasy. So, and I don't think Matthew Golden changes that, but we can transition into the receivers just to talk about them for a second. I do think if I'm going to take any Packers receiver, it's certainly Matthew Golden. Absolutely. Because after last year, where nobody broke out, they are clearly begging for someone to break out. Hence why they took a wide receiver in the first for the first time in a million years. Now, could it take more than a year for this to happen? Yes, Matthew Golden could be a guy that puts up a very modest year one in terms of his own value for fantasy football, and he is more valuable to the Packers as a real NFL team than he is to your fantasy team. But there's also a world where Jordan Love goes, oh my God, I finally have a guy that is above fucking average as a wide receiver. I am going to develop just the best connection with him ever, and he's immediately really good. All within the realm of possibilities. At wide receiver 46, 94th overall, feels like a solid bet to make because you have a guy who could reasonably be his team's leading target getter on that offense. And that's just not a guy you can really come across a lot that late in drafts.
Yeah, to me, it's a kind of situation where with these other guys, it's like if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. Like, we know what Jaden Reed is going to do. He's going to have some insane blow-up games. But there might be games where he's literally not targeted. Like,
or on the field. Like,
well, that's what I mean. Like,
just off the field.
At the beginning of the year last year, I thought I had struck gold. I'm like, oh my god, this guy's incredible.
Yeah.
And then he was one of the more frustrating players to own in the whole league. And Romeo Doubs, again, as I like to call him, his Bert and Ernie bathtub mate, whatever he does with Jordan Love. But again, it's Romeo Doubs. Christian Watson's just out there to suffer a catastrophic injury every year, unfortunately. So, like, if you're going to... Well, Tucker Kraft is in that equation. But if you're specifically wide receivers, Matthew Golden is the guy I would target just because we don't know what to expect. And like you said, it kind of could be a flop. But for where he's going in drafts, that's not going to kill your team here if you draft him and he flops for where he's going. So I'd much rather take a chance on that than get frustrated with Jaden Reed or drop Romeo Doubs and pick him back up every other week and read his name on the waiver wire ads.
Yeah, I do want to mention. So I think, look, Christian Watson's dust at this point. We kind of know what Jaden Reed is. Again, like you said, boom bust kind of guy. Dontavian Wicks, fuck off. The one I want to talk about for a second though is Romeo Doubs, because he had a weird year last year. If you remember, Pat, spent some time away from the team. We never found out exactly what that was. It seemed like mental health related, and it almost seemed to me like last year was kind of doomed before it even got going for Romeo Doubs. So I say that to say, I don't think it's impossible that Romeo Doubs becomes a more reliable player this year than he was last year. I don't know what that means for his fantasy value. I'm just saying I'm not closing the book on that yet the way that I am closing the book on Christian Watson and Dontavian Wicks, and to an iffier, lesser-ish degree, Jaden Reed. So I just wanted to put that out there as a slight possibility. He's going to be a guy that I'm kind of following throughout camp a little bit as well. But again, still like Golden as the better bet. Higher draft capital, more talented player. But Doubs, I'm not completely shutting the book on just yet. Tucker Kraft does bear mentioning, though, because if we're looking for somebody who could be the number one target on this team, he's also a candidate. And he had some really nice weeks last year.
Absolutely. What, I believe going around like tight end 15 as of right now. 13, like, I was shocked. I figured he was going to be definitely top 10, potentially more towards the top 5. And that's about where I have him. Yeah, I've got him at 8 on my list here. Again, you talk about potential where it's just like this offense could be so scattered that hurts wide receivers. But for tight ends, where the position is far less of a certainty, that may be enough to be playable there. And then the ceiling is obviously there as well, especially if he's getting these tush-push touchdowns as well, then we could be looking at that. And I guess just to wrap the bow on here, there's no reason not to like Josh Jacobs, really. I mean, everyone kind of thought that, like, bad this and this and this. He was just damn good last year. And Matt LaFleur, they are a run-first team. And there's nobody there to think that's going to really threaten him for workload. And you look at him being
curious about year 2 Marshawn Lloyd, but I agree with you. I'm not.
But did he even play at all last year, though? Did he play at all?
I think he battled.
Well, that's what I mean. It's like, so this is really first-year Marshawn Lloyd.
That's fair.
In that sense.
That's fair, yeah.
So, like, in theory, yes, if he kind of had that Emmanuel Wilson role last year, then I'd say, like, yeah, maybe I'd be more concerned about it. But I'm not concerned about him really at all. But yet you look at him at RB10, and you look at the guys in front of him, and you're just kind of like, yeah, I think I'd rather have those guys. And that just might be an indictment of a really good group of running backs we're going to have this year. But again, if you don't go for the Bijans, the Jahmyr Gibbs, the Ashton Genties, you go a little later, you're getting Josh Jacobs here at, 23rd overall?
Yeah, that feels pretty
7
nice.
days a week, smash.
I would agree.
He gets 5 big booms.
I agree with everything you said there. All right, Pat, let's finish out. That wraps up our NFC North fantasy football preview. We will see what division we do next. I don't know. It's a mystery. You'll have to wait and see. But we're going to finish out our show, Pat, with some way too early NFL award predictions. Got about 13 minutes here, so that won't be too in-depth here as far as our reasoning. But
I didn't give a second of thought to this, so.
Perfect. It's May, so you shouldn't. All right.
Exactly why I didn't.
MVP, Pat. Who's your way too early MVP?
Joe Burrow.
Me too. Nice.
God
I have
damn it.
I have all my answers written down. So
I have none written down. So I'll go first, just so.
Yeah, I'll let you go first every time. That one feels kind of easy, just because again, Bengals offense, their defense doesn't exist. Somebody's going to be stat padding, and it's going to be Joey B.
And
So, yeah.
assuming that team is better as well, that was kind of the whole reason that kept him out of the running last year, was they were bad. If you think that team is better, there's no reason to not. And for Offensive Player of the Year, Jamar Chase.
Okay, fair. I mean, he just won it this past year, didn't he? Or did Saquon win it?
I think Saquon won it, no?
Did Saquon win it? Hold on, let me confirm. Because fucking Jamar went crazy.
It's always
it was
against
Saquon.
me.
Yeah, it was Saquon. So yeah, I mean, look, Jamar.
So
Chase
he's due.
is
It's his
probably-
turn.
It is probably his turn. I have Malik Neighbors. I think Malik Neighbors with competent quarterback play. Which, I mean, yes, Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston is maybe generous in that regard, but like Malik Neighbors had, I think, 1,200 yards with me and you throwing him the football, and they added no one to this receiver room. So I'm going Malik Neighbors. He could call in 200 yards a game for all we fucking know. So, all right, Defensive Player of the Year.
Max Crosby, because I like him.
Funny, because my reasoning's the same. Christian Gonzalez, because I like him.
Ah,
He was, so fun fact, I didn't realize Christian Gonzalez was second team All-Pro last year. So like this isn't that far fetched.
No, it's
like
not
that's
that. And we
I
just
didn't
saw
realize.
a cornerback win it as
Exactly.
well. So like it's in the
Cornerback
realm
season.
of possibility.
All right, Pat. This one's gonna be a real head scratcher for you. Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Tommy Malott, the quarterback turned wide receiver for the Raiders.
Isaac
my pick.
Teslaw of the Detroit Lions.
Bayshall Tootin.
Oh, wait.
God, I do not look forward to our AFC South preview, man. I do not look forward to that.
Almost played the Undertaker song by accident. Bayshall too. I'm assuming it's actually Ashton Genty. Well, it could be Cam
His
Ward.
odds should be minus a million.
Cam Ward's going to be a starting quarterback. If he puts up 20 touchdowns, he might win it just by default because quarterbacks. So I'm just saying.
Yeah, but Ashton Genty's big scary guy that
Not
is
anymore.
just
Chip
runs-
Kelly made him change his stance, so now he doesn't stand like Michael Myers anymore. I don't know if you saw
Fuck.
that. Yeah,
I didn't.
his career's ruined before it's even started. No, I picked Ashton Genty as well.
I hate to. I don't want to get too deep into it. I hate to say it, but like we talk, it's almost like a foregone conclusion. I'm going to take him in our fantasy draft, and I just don't know if I can do it. I just don't know if I can do it at 3. I don't know. I don't know if I can do it.
I mean, Pat, I'm in a much more cushiony spot if you want to make another draft day pick swap.
I don't
at
believe
number
there's going to
6.
be that issue this year.
What do you mean? You're not going to be doing that this year? Or?
No, last year I was very conflicted. I don't see myself being that conflicted this year.
I'm just saying, if you want a guy like Genty, and pick 6 is a little bit more easy to stomach for a guy like Genty, you know, my phones.
I do got a pretty big stomach, so that's.
Defensive Rookie of the Year. Good luck picking this one off the top of your head. We are such defensive gurus on this podcast.
Yeah, I am really just absolutely what. You asked me who the first defensive player picked in this draft was, and I got to think.
That shouldn't be that hard. That part. May I introduce you to the New York Giants at pick number 3?
Oh, good lord. I'm still forgetting his name.
Blanking this hard.
It's Abdul Carter,
It is
man.
Abdul Carter. Yes. That's not who I picked to win it though. I actually went a little off the board here just for fun because I think this guy has the chance to get some of those flashier numbers that voters on this kind of thing really enjoy, and it's the sack numbers. I picked James Pierce Jr., the Falcons' actually second pick that they made in the first round, because I think he's got a chance to just be the only actual pass rusher on that D-line. Jalen Walker's supposed to be more of kind of a hybrid. I think Pierce is going to be on the line most of the time trying to get to the quarterback, and I mean, if he gets there 10 plus times, like, you're probably got a one-way ticket to Defensive Rookie of the Year, unless somebody else goes crazy, which Abdul Carter very well may. Comeback Player of the Year.
DeMar Hamlin. No, comeback player of the year.
Who's getting come on their back, Pat?
Could it realistically be J.J. McCarthy in the sense that he never really played to begin with to come back from?
I think so. I think it could
But
be J.J.
yeah, I'll say J.J. McCarthy.
I will one-up you within the same division with the obvious favorite for the award, and that is Aiden Hutchinson.
Yeah.
All right. Protector of the Year, Pat.
Yes,
Brand
this is new
award. Offensive line award.
Brand new.
I have a strong opinion on who I think is going to win it.
Just say Will Campbell and we'll move on.
It's not Will Campbell, as much as I did almost meme that answer. I have strong thoughts and I have a reason behind it, but I want to see what your answer is first and then see if you agree with my reasoning for it.
Shit.
I need to add the Jeopardy song as a sound effect on this show so that you hurry up sometimes, or just so we have something to fill the air.
Something to fill the air. Well, how about I just literally speak words into the microphone while looking at? There we go. That's better. That's it. That's a good one. Rayshawn Slater.
Okay, cool. Here's my thinking, Pat, is that because this award is overdue, I think the first time they hand it out is going to be, as long as they deserve it, to a relative old head because
Trent
it's
Williams.
their last chance to get it. So I'm picking Trent Williams.
That's understandable.
He needs to put together a healthy season because he was not last year. But if he puts together a healthy season, he's still only 36, which, for a all-time great lineman is not dead yet. He can still put up a really good year. I would say Trent Williams. If he somehow doesn't put up a good year, Lane Johnson for the same reason, which is just age. So I think
why not Jordan Mailata in his Australian accent and beautiful singing
I mean,
voice?
he very well may win it because he's incredible and was first team All-Pro last year. But I think
he's the blindside guy.
Or actually,
too.
no, I think he was second. He and Lane were both second. They were the tackles.
And Mailata's the left tackle, right? So he's
Yeah.
the true blindside guy. He gets all the love.
Yes, correct. But yeah, I think they're going to give it to an old guy. That's my prediction. Coach of the year. And why is it Mike Vrabel? That's not my pick, but
Ben Johnson. Like,
okay,
if he can turn that team around, I don't see why not.
I mean, yeah, if he does what we expect him or hope that he can do, he would definitely be a shoo-in. I'm going to go with Sean Payton because I have high expectations for the Broncos.
Yes, I do too.
Yeah, go with Sean Payton. And last one, Pat. This one's going to be a fun one for you to go off the top of the head, too. Assistant Coach of the Year. Who you got?
Patrick Graham.
Just any Raider. Yeah, I mean, hey, why not? I'm going with Bobby Saleh on the Niners now that he's back in his rightful post.
Yeah, if that defense is healthy and keeps it all together, there's no reason they're not going to be a feared group. So yeah, that's a good pick.
Yeah, I'll go Bobby Saleh. All right, folks. That's our scuffed award predictions here in, again, the month of May. Let us know.
Right.
Let us know what division you want us to cover next time, Pat. There may not be a show next week because I will be traveling. But I'll keep you posted on that. But yeah, a good chance that we don't have a show next week. But we will return the week after. I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to all the loyal listeners out there. But hey, if there's anything I could say about that, folks. For Pat Gustafson, I'm Brandon Carney, and we will see you guys next time.
Happy birthday, Bert. Bye-bye.
All right, and then now, of course, we will answer our questions and our numerous donation questions. First,
I have such bad swamp ass right now, by the way.
I got to pee so bad. Otto with 199 said, "You already know the Lions run the North." Yeah, probably.
Yeah, still, yes. Yeah. Yes, I agree.
Lucian with 5 said the revision would have banned pushing the ball carrier. Yeah, that was. I tweeted about how that was interesting because like running backs get pushed when the pile gets stopped, and I know they tend to blow the whistle when momentum gets stopped, but still that ends up happening.
Well, the thing is you can't pull anymore. That's been outlawed for a while now. So like, I guess if you want to completely take that out of the equation, because in theory that's what would be causing injuries, but I don't care.
Lucian with another 2.
I know what this one. Oh no,
Bears love their Johnson. They sure do.
Hey yo,
GP Glazer has officially turned heel on George Pickens and said George Pickens will win Bust of the Week every week. Folks,
what a twist!
It's a sad day. He's still got George Pickens as his profile picture. His name is still GP Glazer. But
are you gonna be like CA Glazer or something, or like PF Glazer?
Me?
No, GP Glazer.
Calvin Austin Glazer? I would hope not.
Pat Fryermuth Glazer, that was me a few years ago, honestly.
It was. Lucian with another 5 said, Caleb almost went to the UFL, and I'm glad he didn't, to be honest. Yeah, that was a very funny detail out of all that he tried to go to the UFL just so he didn't have to sign with the fucking Bears.
LaMelo Ball looking,
Omega with 199. It would be funny if Pitts gets traded to KC. Ew. Oh, God, that's disgusting. Absolutely not. I don't want that. I mean, ew. That just combines all my least favorite things. Absolutely not. Lucian with 2 said Bran is going deep, AO. I mean,
Bran goes deep for Luther Burden every damn day.
Luther Burden can have his way with me. Puka Glazer with $2 said nothing. And then he said Puka 2025 Offensive Player of the Year.
Wait till we get to the NFC West. You're going to see an even bigger fucking Puka Glazer than you.
I enjoy that the community is just turning into Glazers of different players. So far, it's just
And I love that it was George Pickens to start because, like... Why? Like, I get GP Glazer is a Steelers fan, so like,
right.
But I like that he was the whatever, the original soldier, whatever. There's a term for it that I'm forgetting, but he's that guy.
He's the OG. Yeah, I want to see more Glazers in the chat. More glazing stat.
Yeah, everybody's.
Reese with 199 said if Detroit can stay healthy, get ready for a show. I mean, yeah, basically.
I don't see why not.
Every year. Ryan with 2 said love y'all. Anyways, Pat, dating life update when?
There isn't much of an update. I got another match on a dating app.
Shit.
And I know, see, that's a big deal when you're as pathetic as... when you... I didn't even know we had that. As pathetic as my life is, she never chatted. She never chatted me, so I don't know if she realized I was bald or something, even though I was clearly bald in my profile, but I don't know. Maybe she found my social media tweets or this podcast and realized that I'm just real sus.
I mean, this podcast makes me want to rip my pants off, so I don't know why.
Did I tell you what happened with the first girl that she ghosted me right after I plugged my band's EP? Did I mention that on air yet?
I feel like you mentioned that.
I feel like
the
I
whole
mentioned
story
it.
That she did that?
Well, I don't think that's why, but I think it was just a coincidence.
Yeah.
But yeah, so maybe the band and then the podcast are what has cost me a love life. So thanks, everybody.
I mean, hey, it's worth it. Lucian with 2 said favorite rookie who was rated an 86 overall on CFB 25.
I saw this one when he posted it.
I mean, listen, I am unfamiliar with the ratings on CFB 25. However, I can only assume it was... Bay Show tootin', baby! Toot motherfucking toot. Stop playing the violin. Cole with 1999. Thank you, man. That's a big donation. Said, do you think Henderson is RB1? And if so, is Mondre or Gibson RB2? Also, I bought a Pat's Diggs jersey for $70 on eBay, but I don't know if I got scammed. Also, where in New England are you from? Sorry for Yap Session. Okay, I'll answer these one by one and completely dox myself at the end. Henderson... probably RB1. I mean, look, it's going to be a committee backfield between him and Ramondre. So if you're to answer your question, who's the RB2? Mondre. Yes. If it's not Henderson with Mondre as the one.
Certainly.
I think it's going to be a two-headed backfield. I think Henderson probably rips it away over time. But this is Josh McDaniels' offenses have long used 2 running backs, so I expect them both to be involved. Pat's Diggs jersey for $70 on eBay. I mean, why is that on eBay? He hasn't even played a game for the Patriots yet. I imagine you got scammed. But if it's nice enough, who really cares? We've all bought Chinese knockoff jerseys before. And then also, where in New England are you from? Connecticut is where Pat and I are both from. So, yeah, that will not give much more detail than that because Connecticut's a very small state.
I've given my address on this show before.
You sure have, and that episode's just still up. Anyway,
Bucko, I don't want it to go anywhere. Someone send me some nice stuff. Anthrax,
Bucko with 5 said, which division do you think is most open for potential winners? Also, who's going to be the worst in each conference? NFC Saints, AFC Giants. I'm with you on the Saints.
Me too.
For sure. The Giants, I hate to tell you, are not in the AFC, so that's a very funny pick that you just made. But worst team in the AFC.
Don't say it.
Maybe you meant Jets, but I don't know.
I'm still going to say Titans again.
Worst team in the AFC could be the Titans.
Don't say it.
No, I don't think the Raiders are going to be the worst team.
I don't either. I genuinely don't either.
Browns.
Oh,
Browns
dude, God, I forgot the Browns. Yeah.
Browns are ass.
Sorry.
But,
Apologies to all 0 Titans fans in the chat right now.
which division's most open for winners? I mean, any year the AFC North feels like a good bet, but maybe not as much this year.
I think the NFC West will be really competitive in the sense if San Francisco kind of gets their shit back. We don't know if Seattle will fall off. Maybe Arizona will take that next step.
Give me... I'll just take the NFC North. I mean, it was a million teams with double-digit wins last year. I can see them doing the same fucking thing.
Fair.
Bucko with another 2 said AFC Titans, mixed up the Giants for the Jets. Fair enough. And so you just decided.
They don't matter. Neither of those teams matter anyway.
I love it. Appreciate all the donos, Bucko, as always.
We love
man.
you, Bucko.
Thank
03 Union Jack flag.
03 gigabytes.
O'Reilly
Wait, do you see a flag on your screen? I see just GB. It just says GB on mine, which must be Great Britain.
No, I do see the flag. Yeah.
Oh, I don't see the flag. What kind of janky version of this fucking app do I have that it looks like it's just gigabytes? I thought it was gigabytes this whole time.
You thought it was
But
3 gigabytes?
Now that he says
it's the UK flag.
I understand that now, but it's not a flag for me. So how was I supposed to know that? Alex with 199 said Josh Jacobs Jingleheimer Schmidt. His name is my name too.
I wanted that to be my team name one year, but it didn't fit. As I see, you've removed some letters and spaces to make it work. So in case I draft him, that might be the move, Alex. Thank you.
And then Cole with 199 said CT is like twice the size of Rhode Island. I mean, yeah, but that's not saying much. Rhode Island.
Is Rhode Island a real place? Debatable.
Very debatable. Has nicer beaches than Connecticut, though. So
By a lot.
All right. Any questions here before we hop off? Something I don't do very often, but I'll hop off after this question. After these questions. So if you guys got any last little diddles here.
I see. We don't have to go into depth, but let's see. Kyle Richards here. How do you feel about Justin Fields for fantasy? I've heard rumors the Jets plan to use the tush push. Honestly, I don't care about that second part. That does not have a lot of bearing on me.
But I got to get to the goal line first.
Well, that's the thing. If you're looking at in that, again, we talked about tiers, and that lower tier quarterbacks, he's probably one of the more appealing options because he runs the ball.
Yeah.
Like, do I think he's going to be a startable quarterback every week? No. If it turns out that he is, it wouldn't be like the most surprising thing just because of that rushing upside.
I think that's fair. Are you guys going to do a rookie draft? We did one in a recent show. I don't know which one. We definitely did a rookie draft. That guy said, just watched your last video. Thanks, man. That video's doing really well. So
did you like my alley-oop for the podcast plug?
I did during the premiere of that video. Pat,
I knew. As soon as I saw you were doing that, I'm like, yep.
That video now has a lot of views, which is just great for the program. 80,000 in 5 hours. So we are killing it over there.
I'm at least one of those.
You are. Predict Pat's record. Pat, what's your record? What's your record?
Women won for $1 billion, and I guess that's not really a one anymore. So,
for $1 billion and one.
If we're talking about the Patriots, Brandon's gonna say like 14-3. I'm gonna say 3-14.
I mean, conservatively, 14-3. I don't know who you think we're losing. No, 10-7 is what I've been parroting for the Patriots. 10-7 playoff game.
I'll go more close to 8. I'll say 8.
Fuck you. Let's see. What do you think about the sophomore quarterbacks this next year? Who's getting better or worse? I mean, we glazed Caleb for half the show. Drake May, honest, love him. I'm
gonna glaze Bo Nix a lot too. I've got Bo Nix pretty high.
You got my boner.
Hey yo, and I mean Penix. There's no reason to, but it's really the rookie year for Penis and McCarthy here. So there's no reason to believe that those guys at least won't be good. We could be looking back in 3 or 4 years at a really, really good quarterback class, or ass. That's the funny thing is, like, there is also a scenario where none of these guys really turn out to be very much.
Yeah. Bailey with a good question. This is a guy I feel that I'm going to end up with very strong thoughts on. Does Travis Hunter put up 1K or no? Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, 17 games now.
Pat, I'm so in on Travis Hunter. It's disgusting. Like, so in on Travis Hunter. Liam Cohen.
He's in Travis Hunter?
I'm inside of him. That's how I know he's going to be good. Liam Cohen And he's just so good. It's one of those things where the value of a player that we know is so fucking good is watered down for other reasons. And I will bet on the guy that I know is fucking good and has good coaching and has a path to being at least his team's second highest target every fucking time.
That's crazy to think that the reason why this guy's stock is impacted is because he also is just a very good cornerback. That's insane.
Yeah.
Like the fact that he would be, if he didn't play cornerback at all, he would be crazy high up in for fantasy this year. So, I can see 1,000 yards, especially with 17 games.
Just betting on the talent here. And then I guess that means Trevor Lawrence has to have a good year too. Let's see. Alex said, how do you keep the spirits up in the dog days of early content creation? My newest long form has 70 views in 3 days. Honestly, it's just those videos aren't going to waste if you're learning from them. Like, yes, it's disappointing if they don't do well, but like if you post that and then, watch it back and just think about what you want to do next time to improve upon that, you're always getting better. And that kind of that's gratifying in itself if the views aren't there yet. But I definitely understand how that's frustrating for sure. All right, last thing here. Puka Glazer with another $2 said, will Jaden Daniels have a sophomore slump?
See, we didn't even mention him because I don't think so.
Probably not. No, probably not. He's probably gonna be pretty fucking good.
Fantasy wise, no. Maybe will his numbers falter a little? Maybe, but in terms of his rushing with the rushing touchdowns, I can't see any fall off being very drastic at all.
No, I'm not too worried about it. And comeback of Ben Schwarmer. Ben Schwarmer will return in CFB 26, so stay tuned for that. All right, folks. Thank you for tuning in. I have to piss so bad like I do at the end of almost every show.
I feel like I've pissed with how swamp ass I am right now. Good night.
Good night, everybody.